Night 2 of WrestleMania 36, a pair of new champions, and a whole lot of fun. What's going on out there, world? It's your boy Tommy on the spot for Watch Along Wrestling. Hope everyone is having a very happy and healthy Monday morning. Hopefully you guys have recovered from the weekend that was WrestleMania 36. If it's your first time joining the channel, make sure you leave a big thumbs up and subscribe. And if you have not done so, go back into the archives. I did an entire breakdown of Night 1 of WrestleMania 36, and just yesterday I put up a WrestleMania 31 kind of look back, 5 years later, of my entire trip to WrestleMania 31, taking you back in time to when WrestleMania was a full week, full of festivities that it usually is traditionally, but obviously isn't this year with everything going on with the pandemic that is sweeping globally here currently, and hopefully we are soon on the mend from. But Night 2 of WrestleMania 36, overall, I thought this was another enjoyable night of entertainment. There were things I really enjoyed about the show. There really, honestly, Night 2, there really wasn't anything about the show I disliked. Certainly you can kind of pick through the minutia of each piece of it, and we can kind of get into that. But I felt that it was a really strong show, bell to bell. I mean, it was longer than Night 1. It was about 3.5 hours. And I thought overall there was some really good wrestling on the show. There was some stuff that obviously still, if you're going to go ahead and you're going to compare it to the WrestleManias of years past in terms of being in front of that live crowd and that large stadium setting, it's going to be different for you, right? But I think overall, I mean, really, I think it was a strong show. So let's get right into it. Again, I'm not going to give you the move-by-move breakdown. Instead, I'll kind of give you my thoughts of everything kind of getting into it. Charlotte Flair went for the NXT Women's Championship against Rhea Ripley. They started things off. And actually, earlier in the weekend, I thought this was going to be the match they started things off with. It felt like the type of match that would get the show started on a strong footing, and they really delivered. I think, honestly, this was not my favorite match of the evening. I'll get into that. But this was probably, I think, the best technical wrestling match of the evening. I thought that Charlotte and Rhea both brought it. I think Rhea Ripley, I mean, you consider the fact that I think she's 22 or 23 years old, and she's competing at WrestleMania against Charlotte Flair. I thought she was awesome in this match. I thought that both women looked great, and now Charlotte Flair, your NXT Women's Champion. A lot of people unhappy about this. Reign number 11 for Charlotte Flair, if we're including NXT, and I don't see any reason why you wouldn't. So I think there's definitely people who are not too pleased with this. I actually put up a poll asking people where they'd be more unhappy with if Brock Lesnar had defeated Drew McIntyre or if John Cena had defeated The Fiend. And a lot of folks got back to me and said I'd be more unhappy if Charlotte Flair defeated Rhea Ripley. And it almost didn't dawn on me. I mean, once I thought about it, I was like, I guess so. But, you know, I don't think Rhea loses anything by losing this match. I think she still had a strong outing. And at the end of the day, she went over 20 minutes with Charlotte Flair toe-to-toe, who's kind of been established as the gold standard in the women's division for WWE. I mean, 10 women's championship reigns, main events of WrestleMania. Look, Asuka didn't beat Charlotte. Asuka was undefeated forever and didn't beat Charlotte at WrestleMania. So I didn't think that Rhea Ripley was going to win the match. She didn't, and now you have the extra added intrigue of, is Charlotte now, you would assume, going to be back in NXT as kind of the face of the women's division for NXT, and kind of having some great matches with Io Shirai and Candice LeRae, Bianca Belair, and a whole host of others. So I think that there's a lot to kind of get into there, and I think that it could be a lot of fun. And I think that now you have both Finn Balor and Charlotte Flair down in NXT and helping out with that brand. So I think when you get a talent like Charlotte Flair over there, it's only good things for the brand. And at some point, someone will defeat Charlotte for that NXT Women's Championship, and whoever does will get propelled to that next level. But Rhea Ripley is going to be fine. I thought she looked really great in the match. Next up, this was a real surprise for me. Alistair Black versus Bobby Lashley. I guess I wasn't too excited about this match because there wasn't any hype for it whatsoever. Literally, I don't think these guys had an interaction. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know in the comment section. I might be wrong. Maybe they did. But if they did, I missed it, and I certainly don't remember it. So I think that in looking back, the match itself was great. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. This was two hard-hitting guys coming at it. Alistair Black gets the big win here. First off, had the really cool gear. Comes out, had the horns kind of a part of his outfit. Hopefully that's a future WrestleMania Elite, as I typically my brother-in-law and I sit here and we kind of try to pick and choose the different elites for each WrestleMania, and I definitely could see potentially that being a future elite figure. But I thought Alistair Black looked great. He got a big victory over Bobby Lashley, and they had some dissension brewing between Bobby Lashley and Lana. I, for one, hope that this just means that Rusev will come back, he and Lana will be reunited, and we can kind of forget this entire thing went forward. But Bobby Lashley, man, the guy is chiseled from stone, absolute freak of nature. This guy comes out, you can't help but just double take in terms of, like, just built. I mean, this guy's just ridiculous. But in any event, good win for Alistair Black, and interested to kind of see where he goes from here. Next up on the show, Dolph Ziggler versus Otis. While there was no build for Alistair Black versus Bobby Lashley, I think some of the best build, if not the best build overall, was for Otis and Dolph Ziggler. This was a match I was really looking forward to. I was excited for Dolph Ziggler. 16 years in WWE. This is his first singles match ever at WrestleMania. And I think him and Otis delivered. Now, I gotta be honest, I thought it would have been super cool for them to have at least a little bit of an exchange in terms of that amateur wrestling. Obviously, Dolph is a champion, I believe from Kent State in his college, a champion wrestler. And Otis has some Greco-Roman wrestling background as well, so I really thought it would have been cool if they just got in the ring, kind of grappled for a bit. Obviously, that doesn't really fit the character of Otis. Otis's deal is, he's more of a bit of a comedy wrestler, but I think he could straight go, and I thought they had a pretty good match, and this was really much more about the storyline than anything else. Obviously, Mandy Rose comes out at the end, saves Otis, jumps into his arms, and they embrace in a big smooch, and I thought it was awesome. I had put on over at my Twitter at WatchAlongTommy that it was almost reminiscent of, obviously not as emotional probably as some folks would have thought, but WrestleMania 7, the reuniting of Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth. This is kind of the new age of that with Otis and Mandy Rose. Finally, Mandy embracing Otis and Otis getting the girl after being stood up and kind of made the ass of most of the storyline looking thus far. Next up, you had Randy Orton versus Edge in a last man standing match. This match here is a bit divisive, I think, amongst the wrestling community. I think a lot of folks thought the match just went on way too long. I saw folks saying the match was terrible. I thought that folks were saying the match was bad and just plotting. I disagree. I think the match was actually pretty good. There were parts of the match I really didn't like. Certainly absolutely inexcusable for Randy Orton to be choking Edge with gym equipment. I'm not going to get too much further into that, but obviously we all know what in the wrestling community what that signals, and just bad taste. Shouldn't have not have been on that show or a part of that match whatsoever. But I thought overall this was a good match. Did it go a little long? Of course, but I think that there was a couple things that kind of contributed to that. First off, I really like Byron Saxton and Tom Phillips. I think these guys are a really underrated duo when it comes to commentary. I think they had a really off night during last night, and I think that specifically during this match, they certainly did not do it any favors. These guys spoke really low. They spoke really plotting. They kind of, I don't know if they were going for kind of how, it reminded me of back in the day when you had the Boiler Room Brawl and the announcers would kind of be trying to figure it out with us, so they'd be speaking kind of low to kind of add to it. But we don't have a crowd. You don't have any crowd reaction. You need the announcers to give you a little enthusiasm, and these guys were announcing like they were on the golf course. I mean, it was really, they did a lot to kind of slow this match down. Another thing that I thought about the match was it did go a little long. I think it went 30-40 minutes, and I think that in an empty arena, you kind of notice when things move slowly a lot more than you necessarily would in a jam-packed arena, right? Like if they had this and they were going all around the arena and the fans were going nuts, then you would be okay with that. I think someone on Twitter made a great comparison to the Shane McMahon-Miz match. This probably was a better match than Shane McMahon-Miz at last year's Mania, but because that match had the crowd super into it, I think that one is a lot more memorable and a lot more favorably remembered than this particular match was. That said, I thought the match was good. First off, being someone who's kind of into that nerddom of WWE, I was really interested to see all the nooks and crannies of the Performance Center. They traveled all around the Performance Center, so that was really kind of fun to see kind of where each piece of the workout equipment was, how the Performance Center works, how they had everything set up. You even saw a little bit of Gorilla and how they had the Gorilla area set up for their little deal there. They battled through the kind of hallways and the locker rooms, the conference room. I love that. I thought that was awesome. I think maybe I didn't realize this match was going on so long because I was in the middle of kind of pointing out each piece of the Performance Center as they went through it. And then the emotion. I mean, great to see Edge back. Edge certainly didn't leave anything They certainly didn't take it easy in his first one-on-one match back. The guy's taking huge risks, huge bumps, huge dive off of kind of the I guess it was the scaffolding there or the ladder area. Did a really nice dive off there. And then at the end, tears coming down his face, overcome by emotion, hits him with the concerto. The announcers say absolutely nothing, which was mind-numbing. I mean, this would have been, if Jim Ross was there, he'd have been, Edge, think about the man's family. Edge, don't stoop to his level. Edge, come on, don't. It would have been awesome. You know, it would have been great if you had someone like Jim Ross, even Michael Cole there, trying to bring you the emotion as the viewer, and the announcers said nothing. I don't know if they were told to lay out, but if so, that was the wrong call. But overall, I liked this. Seeing Edge there, tears streaming down his face as he levels Orton with the concerto and ends up winning on top of the NXT truck, I thought was interesting, and I thought it was a pretty good match. Was it long? Absolutely. Could have shaved 10 minutes off it, but overall, I thought it was not as bad, certainly, as folks are making it out to seem on the internet. Next up, Street Profits versus Austin Theory and Angel Garza. And when this match came on after the Edge Orton match, I was like, man, this is the come down spot. This is a tough spot. Never easy to go and follow something like that. But obviously they're not in an arena, so they're not in a jam-packed arena. Normally, if a big match like Edge Orton takes place and you're in a stadium, you're in a big arena, everyone's filing out now after this to go to the merch stand, go to the restroom, get up and stretch, everything to that extent. Not the case when you're in an empty arena, and I thought Street Profits really, in particular, brought the energy, man. These guys were amped. These guys were jumping up and down, and I was reminded just over a year ago, I actually saw the Street Profits and Austin Theory wrestling right here in Queens, New York for Evolve Wrestling. I mean, if there's ever, proof in the pudding that you should go support your independents, last year I'm seeing these guys wrestle in front of about 500-600 people, maybe not even that many. And now here they are wrestling at Wrestlemania, so you never know. Go out, support your independents, go to the meet and greets, go see these guys. And before you know it, they'll be wrestling at Wrestlemania and some of the biggest stars in the world. So I really liked this match. This match had a lot of really good action. Austin Theory, considering that this guy a couple weeks ago was thinking that he was just getting his NXT run started, and now all of a sudden he's thrust into this big match for the tag titles at WrestleMania. I thought he looked really good. Angel Garza, everyone knows, is a star in the making. The guy's just awesome. And then at the end, nice little run-in from Bianca Belair. I thought that was really cool. Obviously, the real-life wife of Montez Ford, so great to see her come to her husband's aid as Zelina Vega was getting involved there, and good to see kind of the Street Profits and Bianca get their little WrestleMania moment there with the EST music playing, and I thought it was really cool. So great to see Bianca on the kind of Raw roster there. I don't know if that means she's going to be a part of the Raw roster or what the deal is for her moving forward. I would think she'd still have some unfinished business in NXT, specifically with Charlotte now having the title, but I guess we'll have to wait and see where that happens. But really cool moment, and I really enjoyed this match. Next up, you had what I thought was actually my favorite match of the evening. It was the 5-woman elimination match for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Bayley, Sasha Banks, Lacey Evans, Naomi, and Tamina Snuka. Normally, when you think about a 5-6 person match, someone gets lost in the shuffle. The match ends up really not going along, at least how I normally would expect these matches to go. But I thought these women really worked incredibly hard. I think everybody looked good coming out of the match. Everybody looked protected, and you continue that slow build, which has been going on forever, to eventually Sasha Banks and Bayley splitting off, and you know it's coming at some point, just a matter of when. Sasha will eventually turn on Bayley, at least you think, and kind of see where that goes. But Bayley keeps the belt yesterday. Lacey Evans looked great. Naomi looked great. Even Tamina, even she's protected if they want to continue to use her. She hasn't been on TV in like a year before this, but if they wanted to continue to use her, they certainly could. I thought she looked great coming out of this match. It took all 4 of the other women to pile on and eliminate Tamina. So really strong stuff here. I thought that it was good stuff. Bayley continues this kind of historic reign. They mentioned how many days she's been champion each and every time she comes out there. So interesting to kind of see how they're going to go with that. But I think Bayley is really coming into her own both as a heel and as the champion on the SmackDown side of things. This was a match that continued to pick up steam and interest, I think, throughout the entire weekend. And it delivered. I think it was legitimate. This was my most enjoyable match of night 2. And I'd say other than probably the ladder match and the Rollins-Owens match, I'd say this was definitely a top 3 match for me. Now, I'm not including the Last Ride match and the Firefly Funhouse match, which I'm about to get to, because those I kind of consider to be kind of in their own realm as opposed to like legit matches themselves. So let's get into it. Firefly Funhouse was next. This was insanity. I mean, there were so many nooks and crannies. I could probably go back and watch this 3 more times in a row and find something different and new throughout this entire deal. Really interesting stuff. I had heard that Bray Wyatt and Bruce Pritchard are the ones that put this together, and it makes sense because there was a lot of stuff there that was catered specifically to that kind of internet crowd, and who knows the internet crowd better than Bruce Pritchard at this point, who's been ingrained in the internet crowd over the last couple of years with the kind of explosion of the Something to Wrestle With podcast. Him and Conrad do a great job, and obviously I think he knows what appeals to that internet audience, and this match was just that. I mean, it was a lot of really interesting stuff that was there, a lot of nostalgia, a lot of kind of character development for both Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt was flashing back to when he was older Bray Wyatt. Cena was flashing back to when he was Ruthless Aggression. John Cena coming out with the SmackDown Fist. John Cena shows up as Dr. Thugonomics John Cena. So he's a prototype. I mean, there was so much there. Go out of your way to see this. Everyone should. I even told, after night 1, I told a lot of my friends who didn't even watch wrestling to go out of their way to check out the Last Ride match, because I thought they'd really enjoy that, and they did. I think the Boneyard match, rather. I think same deal when it comes to John Cena and Bray Wyatt last night. I thought that it was really fun. It was awesome, and I was really impressed. They did a really fun job in the storytelling there. Obviously, Pop of the Night, the Vince McMahon puppet with the "such good shit, pal" line was incredible. It popped the entire room I was with, and we all had a great laugh at that. Obviously, a tie-on to the Jon Moxley interview when Moxley left WWE for AEW, and good to see WWE being able to at least laugh at themselves, and it was great. Really good stuff. The Fiend, and I think the best, most compelling piece is when you see John Cena having all these flashbacks in his head to years and years and years and years of the crowd just turning on him, not accepting him, and really just cheering for anyone else that he was going against. They showed the CM Punk from Money in the Bank 2011, when Punk's leaving the crowd and taking the belt with him, and the crowd's cheering this anti-hero on, while John Cena's there every single day, and they're booing him out of the building. So it was interesting to see, and then the aggravation getting up, and then finally the Fiend makes the appearance, beats John Cena, and Cena gets deleted and is now gone. So interesting to kind of see what the future holds for John Cena, much like what the future holds for AJ Styles following his WrestleMania match with The Undertaker. So Boneyard match, Firefly Funhouse match, really fun deals and something different on each night of WrestleMania. And I thought it was a really fun story. And then the best part about this, Titus O'Neil, who had been filling in as the backup host for Rob Gronkowski, because Gronk actually won the 24/7 title and ended the night as the 24/7 champion. He's actually on the WWE website as your current 24/7 champion, listed in the Superstars Champion section. There he is, Gronk himself. So interesting to see where they kind of go from there. But when it comes to Titus O'Neil, he was filling in as the backup host, and they kind of came out of that match, went right to him. He was just standing there, staring at the camera, and he's just like, he just said something like, "I can't believe what I just saw," and it was awesome. It was perfect for what the match was, and I was glad to see, though, that this match didn't close the show, because I did think that Drew McIntyre and Brock Lesnar had earned that spot, specifically Drew, who's worked so hard for this. It's funny, I was going back, I was watching that Chronicle special on Drew McIntyre, and they were talking about some of the bad luck this guy has had, and I didn't even necessarily realize how much of it he had. If you think about it, Drew McIntyre, not only did he have that run in 2009 and then eventually kind of just flamed out, he was in 3MB and then eventually released. Then he works his way back up, comes to NXT, and I think what wasn't even mentioned in the Chronicle and his big pieces, he wins the title and immediately gets injured, right? Like, he was supposed to have this big storyline with Adam Cole when Cole kind of debuted at TakeOver, I think it was in 2017, and instead, nothing happens because the guy got hurt. So he really did have a string of bad luck, and now, obviously, his match here with Brock Lesnar ends up being completely compromised in a bit because of the fact that they're in an empty arena, so the guy wins the Royal Rumble in front of a big stadium setting. He's now ready to go and fight Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. This whole COVID deal breaks out, and now they're wrestling at the Performance Center with no fans. So him and Brock did have, they were the main event last night. It was very similar to the Goldberg-Braun Strowman match. I thought it was a little disappointing. she said it best. She came in and said, "Oh, Brock's fighting a bigger guy. This should be pretty quick." And she was right. It does seem when he fights these bigger guys, these matches are not long for the taking. And again, last night, I mean, Drew can go. And I definitely think Brock Lesnar and Drew McIntyre have a great main event level type match in them. So hopefully down the road, they're able to get back to this match, kind of how Rollins and Lesnar did last year, where they had a quick match at WrestleMania and then had what I thought was a really underrated and great classic main event at SummerSlam. So hopefully we get there again with Brock and Drew. Maybe they kept it short just because there wasn't any fans there. But at least they did the right thing. They put the belt on Drew. At least coming out of WrestleMania now, you have two guys who are on the main roster as your top champions on the men's side of things in Braun Strowman and Drew McIntyre. Whether you feel great about Braun, at least he's on the show every week. And I think we could all agree that it's great for Drew McIntyre that he was able to win the Universal Championship last night from Brock Lesnar. So really great stuff, and good for McIntyre to again have that top title in the business. The guy's worked incredibly hard for it, absolutely deserves it. I think I said Universal Championship. I think he's world champion. I get confused between the two. They flip around so often, but yes, I think the Universal Champion is Braun, and I think the world champion is Drew. So good for Drew, and really happy for him. Would have liked a better match, would have liked a longer match, but I think also they just do a lot of damage to these finishing moves when the match is just finisher, 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 and you're kicking out of the guy's finisher 4 or 5 times before the 4th or 5th one finally gets you. Becomes a little too much. So didn't love the main event, if I'm being honest, but I did love the moment of Drew standing tall, holding the belt up in the air, and then we all watched the beginning of that Last Ride documentary with The Undertaker. At least I think we did. If you haven't done it, go out of your way to see the first look. This thing looks awesome. They've legitimately, WWE has followed The Undertaker around and documented the last 3 years of his career. So you think about that. The WrestleMania match with Roman. The WrestleMania match with Cena. The unbelievably disaster of a match with Goldberg, where him and Goldberg just completely, had one for the ages in terms of just a disaster of a match. I don't think either of their faults necessarily. I think Goldberg ended up getting concussed, but it was a bit of a disaster. And it'll be interesting to see how they kind of uncover this. And I don't know if this is leading to an announcement of when his final match will be, or if that was his final match against AJ Styles, and maybe this is kind of leading up to that, and that's the end of this whole documentary. But it's a documentary series event, and one I'm really excited about checking out. So overall, WrestleMania 36, a lot of fun. Interesting to see if they do this over 2 days again in the future. I think it'll be a lot harder to do over 2 days. If you think about the fact that you have to now convince a crowd to come out and spend top dollar 2 days in a row, and that's tough to do. I think they definitely notice that the event is better over 2 days. I think Mustafa Ali said it best online, that hey, this allows for talent to have greater exposure, to be able to go out, show what they can do, have 10 to 20 minutes, at least every match. I think, other than the bigger matches, the 2 title matches, I think every match that wanted time got time. And they ended up, everyone looked good, and everyone had time to develop over the weekend. And it was a really strong, good little break from the reality and the insanity that is the reality of the world right now. And, while it wasn't your WrestleManias like you normally would expect, I think it was a good release and a good break for all of us. So, again, it'll be interesting. I don't see them doing a 2-day WrestleMania, just again, because it's tough to convince folks to come and drop $1,000 on a chair. On a floor seat one night and then be able to do it again the next night. Maybe they put together a package where you can get your seat for 2 nights for kind of a discounted rate if they were to do that. I do think the show's a lot better over 2 nights. I can't fathom this show being one night and having all those matches over one night and legitimately sitting there for 7-8 hours, which is what I think would have happened if this was in the Tampa Stadium. I think you would have had the 2 Battle Royals and maybe 1 or 2 of the matches would have been shifted around, but for the most part, I think you still would have got all those matches, and that would have made for one incredibly long evening. It would have exhausted everyone by the time the night was over. And instead, I'm ready for Raw after WrestleMania. Bring it on. Let's go. At this point, I'm feeling really good as a wrestling fan, and I hope you guys are as well. Let me know what you thought about the show in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next video.